Hi, I'm Megan McGee, dietitian and owner of Nourish Nutrition Consulting. And today I'm here with Movement First Wellness, and we are going to be talking about the power of stress. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. I love this slide. There are only 2 times I feel stress, day and night. And I think for so many of us, we can really resonate with that. We are feeling high demands, high pressure, go, 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 all day long. And for many of us, it's impacting our night, including our sleep. When I think of stress, the first place I like to start is thinking about how our bodies are designed to cope with stress. So think back to when we were Paleolithic man, hunters and gatherers. Our stress was short duration with high intensities. So for example, there goes the deer or the gazelle, and that is my dinner. If I do not catch it, I am going to be hungry. Or perhaps there is a bear chasing me, and I am about to become dinner if I don't get out of the way. So short duration, but high intensity. That is how our bodies are meant to function in regards to stress. In this day and age, however, we have moved into dull chronic stress day in and day out with the acute stressors on top. So for example, the daily grind is that dull chronic stress, but then you add a big life change on top. Maybe it's a job loss, maybe it's a divorce, a loss of a loved one, you name it. But basically we have dull chronic stress all day long, every day. Plus you have the big acute stressors on top. This is not how our bodies are designed to cope. And for many of us, it has big impact on how we feel day in and day out, but also physiologically what's happening within our health. So let's keep going. We're going to start by talking about the adrenals and cortisol. So your adrenal glands are pea-sized glands, and they sit right with your kidneys. The adrenals are the gland that help you to cope with stress. One of the main hormones our adrenals secrete is cortisol. Perhaps you've heard of cortisol. We need cortisol to manage stress. We need cortisol for energy, but we need the right balance of cortisol, or cortisol translates to belly fat and can impact us energetically. So cortisol should be high in the morning, which means energy, lights on, let's party, let's get this day going. Cortisol should peak off and become lowest around the afternoon, about 3, 4, 5 o'clock, and then should continue to stay low through the evening, which means we are then ready to go to sleep. So high cortisol in the morning for energy, lower cortisol in the evening for sleep and rest. But for many of us, because we are under that chronic stress, our adrenals get tired, we get tired, and we are actually secreting the wrong balance of cortisol. So when we are tired, there are many habits we push into that are actually completely a normal response, but unfortunately they do not serve our bodies very well. So for example, when our adrenals are stressed and we're pushing a lot of cortisol, for a lot of us, we are going to crave sugar. Sugar gives us a boost. It's a short duration boost, but it can give us a boost. It can help us feel better, so it can help with mood and well-being. Think about if you have that really nice piece of chocolate, it actually can boost our serotonin to give us a little happiness. But as we crave more sugar and as we consume more sugar, it actually depletes nutrients from our body. That nutrient depletion actually keeps us craving, and then we continue to consume more sugar, and now we get in a bad feedback loop. So it is a very normal response when our adrenals are screaming because they're working so hard. And when we are pushing so much cortisol, it's again very normal for this response to happen. It's our body's way of saying, hey, something's not right. Your check engine light of your body is on. Unfortunately, the message is not always clear. And so it's very common to crave sugar when we are in a state of stress. Ultimately, that overconsumption of sugar puts more stress on our bodies. When we are pushing cortisol and when our adrenals are pushing hard, we may also then move into feeling fatigued and looking for things to give us energy. This is also a very common pattern. So we are feeling tired, so we're reaching for caffeine. It doesn't matter whether that's a cola, a coffee, a Red Bull, any type of caffeine, which actually puts more stress on the adrenals, can deplete nutrients from our body, which ultimately keeps us tired, reaching for more caffeine to give us the energy, and then again, we get into another cycle. So a takeaway is if you are thinking about habits, oh my goodness, I really, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I always need a coffee or a Red Bull, or I always need that chocolate or that cookie. Those are very normal responses to our stress. The problem is they just don't ultimately serve us. Have you ever considered your pace of eating and how this might impact your body? So when we are pushing high levels of cortisol, cortisol does many things. High levels of cortisol push us to also secrete high levels of insulin. We need insulin, but like cortisol, we need the right balance of insulin. So cortisol and insulin both become fat storing, or they slow our metabolism. Insulin and cortisol are both inflammatory. So if we are dealing with any health conditions, inflammation is the underlying root of all health conditions. Cortisol actually dysregulates our perception of time, where we feel like we're constantly running out of time. We're feeling more intensity, more stress, because we have the sense that we're always out of time. We're 2 steps behind. Cortisol dysregulates appetite. It can cause you to feel no appetite for maybe 8 hours, and then to feel voracious where you just cannot stop eating. Cortisol, because there is a stress response with it, again, it impacts our body's ability to burn. And so if you are a fast eater, your body perceives fast eating as stress. Your body perceives fast eating like the bear is chasing you. If the bear is chasing you, your body will actually shut off digestion and shut off the ability for your body to burn your food metabolically. When the bear is chasing us, the only thing the body wants to do is survive. So the body will pump blood to the extremities, especially the arms and the legs, so that we can run fast away from the bear. The body will dilate the eyes so we can see keenly and sharply. If we just have lunch and the bear is chasing us, there is no need to digest that lunch, when the reality is we have a major life stress and the only necessity is survival. Now, in this stage and age, the bear is not truly chasing us, but it is kind of like that. So if you went out to lunch, let's say you had a business meeting, and on your way home or on your way back to the office, you were in a car accident, that is a major stress and you are not digesting. Again, that is an acute situation. It is a survival response. Your body does not need to digest if you have that stressor, that trauma, if you will. So I want you to consider that your pace of eating, if you are a fast eater, your body actually perceives that as stress. Your body perceives that as the bear is chasing you. That will again impact your body's ability to burn the food, regulate your appetite, and your ability to digest the food and absorb your nutrients from your food. So how fast you eat actually has that same response in increasing the stress factor potentially. So as a first tip here, next time you are eating, try to slow down. Try to eat maybe more slow to moderate, and just start to notice how you feel as a result with that. But fast eating is an example of the bear is chasing you, and physiologically it keeps your body in a state of stress. Let's talk about how chronic stress impacts the immune system. So the first thing that I think of in regards to immune is that if we are over consuming sugar to give us energy and to help us feel good, sugar is the #1 food, if you will, that puts stress on the immune system. It's interesting, especially around the holiday season, when in December and January, kind of those darker months, we see a higher incidence of coughs, colds, and flus. And very often we might think it's cyclical, meaning seasonal. But I also consider how much in those months we are over consuming sugar. Another thought within immune is, have you ever either stayed up like all night to study for a test, maybe in those college years? Have you, let's say you've had a big deadline and you have been working hard for months to get a big project done, and then 2 days before you submit the project, you get the cough, the cold, the flu. That is extremely normal. That is your body's way of saying you have been burning it at both ends. You have been doing too much, and I cannot sustain. It's actually your body's innate wisdom telling you you need to rest. But it's also very stressful because, again, very often we are pushing to meet that deadline, pushing to get the project done, and life keeps going. And now we're getting the unfortunate joy, if you will, of a cough, a cold, a flu. So our bodies can only sustain so much intensity. Again, in this day and age, we go and go and go, and we don't always consider physiologically what is happening. But our body is so smart to give us messages. It's not always the messages that we want, like I'm craving sugar, I'm craving caffeine, I've been working too hard and now I'm sick. Our body has the innate wisdom to tell us that these things are not serving us. Talk a little bit about the liver. So the liver is a really powerful organ that, in my opinion, is not talked about enough in this day and age. The liver has a real impact on our health, and the liver is impacted by stress. So your liver, first of all, it makes your cholesterol, it breaks down your cholesterol. Your liver supports the pancreas and healthy blood sugar regulation. So when I think of diabetes, I think of the pancreas and the liver. Your liver is integral for hormone balance, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, your adrenals, and your thyroid. That comes from the liver. So the liver is such an important organ that is very often overlooked. But I want you to consider how we are managing our stress or not managing our stress impacts the liver, which then impacts bigger kind of major health changes or long-term health changes. So for example, if we are eating more refined foods, more grab-and-go processed foods, more alcohol as a coping mechanism, low water consumption, more caffeine. The liver over time gets sluggish. It is still working, it's just not working as efficiently. And as a consequence, our bodies physiologically cannot sustain that year after year after year. And then all of a sudden we get the new diagnosis. Hey, you've got high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes or pre-diabetes, chronic pain conditions, autoimmune conditions. The liver is such an important organ in our health and body regulation, but how we manage our stress has a huge impact on the liver's ability to serve us day in and day out. So, how can we relax into the stress? I really love that phrase because they're quite opposites, those words, relax versus stress. The reality is the stress is not going away. What we can do and need to do is learn how to relax into it. There are so many wonderful relaxation techniques. I think it's about finding what works for you. I love the idea of, and this is just a short list, stretching, yoga, deep breathing, prayer, meditation, being out in nature, resting, choosing to eat nutrient-dense foods in a slow pace. These are wonderful ways to actually turn off cortisol. Did you know, in fact, that simply by practicing deep breathing before you eat, that is the #1 way to turn off cortisol? I am a huge fan of practicing deep breathing. You might consider how to bring some of these things on a more regular basis. So for example, every time you're driving around town and you hit a red light, maybe you practice 5 to 10 deep breaths. Maybe say a small, short prayer. Maybe you have an affirmation that you say to yourself. When it's time to eat, practicing 10 or more deep breaths before you actually eat helps to shut off the cortisol pathway, which helps to better optimize insulin. That helps us to better digest and assimilate our nutrients, but it's a major stress reliever to breathe before we eat, as well as to play with the pace of eating. Eating in a slow to more moderate way, again, helps to turn off that cortisol. Stretching and yoga are such wonderful ways also to practice deep breathing. They allow us to be more in our body. Research proves that we build stress because we are so worried about the future or the past, and we are not being present and in the moment. All of these tools, plus many others, help us to be in our bodies, in the moment. Being present and in the body physiologically helps our bodies to work the way that it's meant to. It helps to take the accelerator pedal off and hit the brakes when it comes to those stress hormones. Stress is not what happens to us. It's our response to what happens. And response is something we can choose. Again, I'm Megan McGee. I'm a registered dietetic tech here with Movement First Wellness. And I want to thank you for your time today. I challenge you to think about what is your stress level. I challenge you to think about what are 1 or 2 or 3 things you can start doing on a more daily and regular basis to help your body, to help reduce cortisol, to help your body better cope with the stress. Take good care and be well.